time, getting ready for my man, Robert Bryce, to join us here, do a little pre-show setup. Kind of liking these intros. I'd like to get feedback from people to see if, because I cut these intros out of the video, and since obviously they're not part of the recording session for the radio show podcast, I'm curious if people actually watch them. And I find them, kind of interesting and setting everything up. So Robert Bryce, again, the first time he was with us was on, that's Robert texting me right now, reminding me to turn my phone down, which glad he did that. He was with us in January of 23 this year. We called that one 4 Whys Concerning Energy. I hope you get a chance to check that one out, the podcast or the video, whatever you prefer. Robert is just, it's very informative, and I'm trying really hard not to cover ground again because he's a valuable contributor to our show. There comes Robert now. So check that one out. That was back, I don't know, 7-8 months ago since we're recording now. Hey, Robert, how are you?
Hi.
Turn your volume up a little.
Sorry, I'm a few technical difficulties here this
No
morning.
problem. No problem. I believe me, I totally, as we both know, technical difficulties with this stuff happen all the damn time at the worst freaking times, right?
I did a radio thing yesterday and I was like, I'm not hearing you very well. Well, I had the volume turned down on my end. It was like, and I figured it out after the hit. And I was like, oh God.
Turn your volume up a little bit because you're a little soft for me right now. Turn that up just a tad.
Okay,
We're
how about
recording.
there? Is that
That's
more
better. That's perfect. We I was just promoing, because this intro segment that I cut out, just telling everybody about your first episode here. Good to see you, man. I'm really, it was very exciting. And I had, I turned your episode on to several students at Michigan State, and they loved it. I mean, the young people, and those are the ones, right? Those are the ones we got to get in their head, because they're getting, I don't want to say on video that they're getting corrupted, but they're certainly getting some really weird information. And it's like, guys, we've got to see both sides of this, right?
Indoctrinated is the word.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to
indoctrinated. They're being lambasted. They're being scared. They're being
okay. All right. I'm gonna
misled. How many more adjectives do you want? I can give you a bunch.
Can we talk about that a little bit about,
sure,
because I'd love to go there. And then I have the Substack. I mean, these interviews with you are so easy. I mean, so I need you for an hour. We'll get going here. I want to eat up your time. You look good. Hope you're feeling good. Your family's good. We'll do the This Is Your Life thing. Remember, it's 5 segments. And then that 5th segment, messages to our younger self. Maybe we'll do the indoctrination thing in the 5th segment for the messages to our younger self. That's not a bad idea. How's that sound to you?
Sure.
Because I do that one and I cut it out. We do a separate thumbnail for it, but it's like, I think that's a good kind of spin to go that direction. We got plenty to talk about before that. So,
of course.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. Give me a check again. I want to see your level. I wasn't
3, 2, 1. Check. Hello. Good morning from Austin, Texas, United States of America.
Let's go, Austin.
Yeah, baby.
How's that homeless problem down there?
Oh,
you stay away from it.
We're becoming a big city, and homelessness is a problem in all big cities.
Absolutely.
The issue of the day is not necessarily homelessness; is the heat. It's just been brutal down here. I mean, just for days and days. And
I mean, it's just we got issues we got to get fixed. That's all. That you and I, we're just we're out there just trying to control what we can control and help people understand things. So let's rock. Here we go. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of the Tom Matz Show. Last week, Craig was here, Craig Stiles, talking about my dad's demise, which was challenging as heck to do that, and the financial aspects of all of that, you guys. So kind of keep that in mind if you're looking for an episode like that, if you're in that position. Maybe you're not in that position, but you just want to get more informed on that. That was specifically all around that whole situation that we're still going through, and we'll be going through for quite a while now, since I'm executor and Sandy is like running everything and cleaning everything and doing all this work. Anyway, so that was last last week's episode. And it was great. I mean, it was awesome. And I, again, sharing good information, trying to educate people on what we're doing. Today, my guest is my pal, the Austin Kingpin. Robert Bryce will be here, power hungry. I'm going to call this one because he is the man, and loved his, I told you guys about the story of when I found his book, and I just did an intro video kind of concept for you guys. Go back and listen to that one if you would. It's not part of the radio program, but it's part of the video stuff. And please go listen to the 4 Whys Concerning Energy, which was Robert's first episode with us, because that really leads into where we're going today. And I don't want to repeat a bunch of stuff because there's always new things happening in the energy industry. Robert Bryce is a Texas-based author, journalist, podcaster, film producer. Great guy. Public speaker. I mean, just over the past 3-4 decades, his articles have appeared in numerous publications. He's all over the place. His bio is very long and very detailed, and I'm not going to go down that road because I want to hear Robert talk. I love listening to this man talk. You're going to love listening to him talk, and you're going to want to probably follow his Substack. We're going to pull a lot of information from his Substack. As a writer, I mean, the guy is just killing it. So his new book, it's a new paperback book, A Question of Power, is out in paperback. That's exciting. I want to welcome back to the program my pal from Austin, the man, the legend,
Now, Tom,
Robert Bryce.
It reminds me of an introduction. Oh, as a guy was years ago, he was in the British, Navy or something. He got this kind of flowery introduction, and he gets up to the podium and he says, "Well, thank you for that introduction. It was one that my mother would have believed and my father would have appreciated."
Hey man, it's all true. You've done a lot, done some really good things, and I'm very grateful for your friendship and giving us time. I know you're super busy with all your stuff. Let's do the usual. I mean, you kind of know the routine. It's second time with the show. This is your life. Get caught up. You've been traveling everywhere. I see. I follow you constantly, and you're just your LinkedIn profile is tremendous. So catch everybody up. What's been happening with the fam, with your life, and then we'll jump into the topic today of Power Hungry.
Sure. Well, first, I'm just, thanks for having me on again, Tom.
My pleasure.
This is the first time I've ever been invited back anywhere, so I don't know. It's always happy. It's always the first time. Seriously, I'm a very fortunate man. I've got a great family. Lauren, my wife, and I've been married for 37 years. Mary, Michael, and Jacob are our kids. They're all great and healthy and out of the house, which is really good. Empty nest, love that. And am busy doing a lot of different things. I'm traveling, I'm speaking, I'm doing my podcast, I'm publishing on Substack. I'm excited. I'm going to London in October to present on a paper on bringing electricity to the developing world, the challenges in that. Just got back from Louisville, where I spoke to the Kentucky Electric Cooperatives. There are a lot of things to talk about, and a lot of things that I think are negative in this country, particularly the lack of, the myopic leadership on energy from this administration. I say that not as a partisan. I think that's just verifiable. But also I'm bullish on the U.S. I mean, for all the things that are bad that are happening with the U.S. is incredibly well positioned and vis-a-vis the rest of the world. So plenty to talk about, but happy to talk about any of those and all of those at wherever you want to go, Tom.
All right, buddy. Well, let's talk about what you just said about the U.S. being in a good position. Let's just start there because I've got other things I want to talk about. But the renewable resentments, everybody, that's coming here in this conversation. But we're going to talk about that. The United States, because we get Robert, we got all this dis and misinformation. Please, enlighten everyone as to why you feel, as an expert in this field, that the U.S. is in a good position.
Well, where to start? When you look at the rest of the world and you compare it to the U.S., do we have a lot of challenges? Oh my God, yes. I mean, structural unemployment, a growing underclass, crumbling infrastructure, a national debt that this year our interest payments this year will exceed $1 trillion. This year, our interest payments on the national debt will exceed what we spend on defense. So the fiscal recklessness by what's happening in Washington is just, it's hard to describe how bad it's been by both Republicans and Democrats. But for all of that, and not that this is insignificant, the U.S. is still incredibly well positioned vis-a-vis the rest of the world. We have cheap, abundant, reliable energy for the most part. We have a relatively young population. We don't have any enemies at our borders or at or near our borders, except for those crazy Canadians. You got to watch them. Um, and you know, we have a vibrant and diversified economy. And so you know, you look at other countries around the world, their populations are aging very rapidly. Their demographic problems are enormous. They have, you know, bad neighbors and bad neighborhoods. And so I'm long the U.S.
Well, that's, I mean, when you started off, I was about ready to start crying, but now because we're trying to leave the world in a better place for our kids and our grandkids, but it's like, you know, but hey, you know, the thing is like, and Robert, I think I've told you that I love reading historical stuff, and I'm reading Lyndon Johnson, the third book of the Lyndon Johnson 4-book
Yeah.
tome of his life. And politics, because I've read so many presidential biographies, the really big ones,
Right.
from the beginning. I mean, from Washington, I've read maybe 10 of them. The politics always seems to be very similar. It doesn't matter if it's 1900, 1850, you know, there's always stuff going on. And so it's just, but the country itself, the people, we keep this bad boy going. And it's like, it's the country itself. So it's such a diverse, awesome country. And the people are so great that no matter, even if we have kind of some funky leadership, the country's awesome. So just want to get your take on
So
that.
you're reading Caro's biography of
Yep,
LBJ. Yeah.
that's right.
Lyndon Johnson is one of my political heroes. I mean, and one of the last of the American presidents to be born in poverty and from rural America. And what he, you know, he never forgot where he came from. And as I see it, his great sin was the Vietnam War, but his great redemption were the Civil Rights Act and Voting Rights Act. That those two things were his towering achievements. And he was also, since we're talking about that, remember, he was a great proponent of rural electrification. And he got to Washington in 1937 after the passage of the Rural Electrification Act in 1935 the Public Utility Holding Company Act of 35 and the Rural Electrification Act of 1936. But when he got there in 37, he immediately started advocating for rural electrification here in Texas. So he was a deeply flawed man, an incredibly complicated man, but at the same time, one of our greatest presidents.
I agree. I mean, there are holes in every person. You can find things in closets everywhere, but in his body of work in his life, the guy had a lot going on, and he did. I mean, talk about success and growing through adversity. If you guys want to really get caught up on something, and that's why I read these biographies about successful people, there's reasons why these people crawl out of poverty and rocket, because they work their butts off. So anyways, hey, Robert, we got a minute and a half before we go to break here, and
Sure.
I want to give you a chance to set things up. Please do. I mean, the first thing I want to jump into is the renewable resentments. Can you just set that up real quick, and then we'll go to break?
Sure, that's one of my most recent pieces on Substack. I wrote about the riots that were massive riots. That's the title. It was in the headline in the Times of Israel. Massive riots in the Golan Heights against a wind project that was proposed in the Golan Heights. And this was part of the ongoing backlash around the world against the encroachment of large-scale renewables. And this is something I've been tracking now for more than a dozen years. And it is the fatal flaw, the incurable fatal flaw for renewables. They just require too much land, full stop.
And we're going to go there. I'm going to talk about this because this is a very, very big, this has to be discussed on land, in the oceans, wherever. We need to discuss all of these topics. And he's here to do that. Power Hungry, new episode with my friend, great guy, superhero, Robert Bryce. I'm Tom Matt. We'll be right back. Boom. All good, baby. Let's go. Let's rock this, babe. I got to read to do, Robert, and then we'll jump right into it.
Okay.
Here we go. This segment is sponsored by Ameriprise Financial. Craig Stiles, just a king. I mean, the guy's just awesome. 11 kids, doing it all, homeschooled them all. Just Ameriprise. And again, full disclosure, as I've said every show, want everybody to know, all of our ReFirement Zone savings are with Craig, because I want to do this stuff. I want to do our media stuff. And I don't want to worry about this. That if you're getting into the refinement zone or you're getting close or you're just planning, you need to think about this. Okay. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Call Craig 1-800-528-1355. Local number 517-483-4893. Email craig.styles@ampf.com. Offices are located 2400 Lake Lansing Road. Suite B is in brilliant Lansing, Michigan 48912. You can always find them on our website, everybody. That's where I always send people, because TomMattShow.com has our sponsors and friends at the bottom of the homepage. Please just go there and click right through. Stations that are carrying us have carried us all over the place. Syndicated radio is crazy. We have independence as well, which is the first one is WGHN 92.1 FM in Grand Haven, carried us first on broadcast radio. So proud to be on there. Thank you guys so much on the lakeshore of Lake Michigan. Beautiful, beautiful Grand Haven. WJM 1240 AM is the flagship for the Michigan Talk Network. WJRW 1340 AM in Grand Rapids carried us for a long, long time. WKLQ 1490 Muskegon Whitehall, WIPV FM 94.5 Mackinac City. And of course, our PBS affiliate at Michigan State University, WKAR, that's just my alma mater. Love the university so much. AM 870 News Talk or 102.3 FM. I want to thank Craig Styles again for creating Desideri Analytics, where we are making light of weighted decisions with his proprietary algorithm. And then lastly, actually two things. Amazon has our 4 books. Please check those out. But really, it's to thank Steve and Ivy Gruber for what they've done to help us and put us on the syndicated aspect of the Michigan Talk Network. So thanks to Steve and Ivy, they're the bomb, and they have a lot of faith in us. All right, back to the episode today. Power Hungry. If you're just joining us, Robert Bryce, my pal from Austin, is here. Very proud to call him my pal, because he's, I just love people who know what they're talking about and they're cool. And that's Robert. So it's like, we're going to talk about power and energy. This is a huge, massive topic. Set this thing up in the previous segment, Robert, we're talking about your Substack article. We're just going to go right down the list here, because this renewable resentment thing, can you set that whole thing up? Just take as much time as you need in this segment to kind of explain what in the heck's going on all over the place. Would you please?
Sure. Well, right at 13 years ago, I was finishing my 4th book called Power Hungry, the myths of green energy and the real fuels of the future. I can remember I've written 6 books. I've got to remember all their titles. So I was finishing Power Hungry, and I got contacted by a guy named Charlie Porter out of King City, Missouri. And I'd written something about wind energy, and he contacted me and said, "With the truth about wind energy, give me a call." Well, he'd been protesting against a wind project that had been built right near his home, and he couldn't live in his house anymore because of the noise from the wind turbines. And that started me on a journey to start cataloging the number of rural jurisdictions across the country who have rejected or restricted wind and solar projects. And that led to the formation of the Renewable Rejection Database, which I maintain and have been maintaining now for 9 years. You can see it on my website, robertbryce.com, or just Google it, Renewable Rejection Database. It's now up to 574, over 400 rejections of wind energy across the country from Maine to Hawaii, nearly 170 rejections or restrictions of solar energy, again, all across the country. One of the most recent ones was in Erie County, Ohio. I mean, you're in Michigan, in Michigan is one of the hotbeds. I wrote about it on my Substack I was in Ida Township in Michigan. They're south of Ann Arbor, where a out-of-state company wanted to cover massive parts of the township with a big solar project. And the local farmers were saying, "Hell no, this is ag land. We got to grow food. What are you doing? We don't want this here." So these rejections, these renewable resentments, which was the title of an article published in the Australian press about Australian farmers pushing for a ban on all new solar projects in Australia until they resolved issues around preservation of ag land. So this is happening all over the world, and it's indicative of one single fact, which is there just isn't enough land to accommodate all these renewables. And yet there's a massive amount of money that is pushing this agenda. It's being pushed by some of the most elite academics in America, and they big money, big law firms, and big banks are pushing this. And the rural Americans, rural residents around the world are saying, "We don't want your bullshit. Go put it somewhere else."
Why are they doing that? And I mean, is it just it's strictly a money grab, or what's driving this thing? Is it strictly money?
Well, of course. I mean, follow the money. This is the hello, hello, Matt. What do wake up and smell the ginseng tea or whatever it is. Of course it's the money. And when you look at particularly here in the United States, the massive amounts of money that were appropriated under the Inflation Reduction Act for wind and solar on the tune of $300 billion. This is a massive amount of money. You show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome, to quote Charlie Munger. But you asked specifically, well, why are rural residents fighting these projects? Well, hello. I mean, I was in Christiana, Wisconsin a few months ago, right outside of Milwaukee. Again, not far from where you are. And this little town was fighting a solar project that would cover 7 square miles of their little town with nothing but solar panels. And they're saying, we don't want this. Are you kidding? We're going to be stuck in the middle of all this. No one wants to live next to these big projects. So people are concerned about their view sheds. They're concerned about their property values. They're concerned about the character and nature of their towns and neighborhoods. These projects, these ideas around wind and solar are very politically popular, but no one wants to live next to them.
What I'm just curious, do you know what the lifespan is for these renewable components that go into the wind and the solar? Do you have an idea? I'm sure you have some kind of concept on that.
Sure. Well, the answer, Tom, is it depends. I don't know if you saw just a few weeks ago, there was a solar project in Nebraska that got hit by a hailstorm and it destroyed the entire thing. I mean, it was a 5 megawatt solar project, large hailstones. I don't know how large, some of them reportedly baseball size or something, just destroyed the whole thing in a matter of minutes. Done, right? Over. You can't, completely unsalvageable. All that stuff's going to the landfill. So how long do they last? Well, it depends on if you have a hailstorm, and if you have a hailstorm, not very long is the answer on solar projects. The rumored life of those solar projects, 20 years, 25 years, maybe. And then they have to be taken out. And then that's a big issue about decommissioning. As far as wind projects, now this is something that's top of mind because I don't know if you saw this, but Siemens, the big German company, just announced a $5 billion loss. Why? Because the wind turbines, in part, but much of that loss was due to the fact that the wind turbines they have been manufacturing are already wearing out, even after a very few months of service, because of bad design. And they're reaching the limit of their ability to turn the kinetic energy of the wind into electrons. So, one of the problems with these wind turbines in general is that they have a very short lifetime.
All right. I wasn't hoping to hear that. I thought I might hear something like that, but that's the thing, everybody. You got to think about all of these factors that go into this stuff. And Robert's here to enlighten us. Robert Bryce is our guest, Power Hungry. I'm Tom Matt. You listen to the Tom Matt Show. Unbelievable. I mean, and then the cost, is that insured? I mean, I'll bet you money that just like your roof getting destroyed, that happens a lot. Hailstorms happen a lot in the Midwest. You know that. And it's like we get that kind of weather constantly. And we've had, whole neighborhoods lose their roofs in like seconds. Sure. Just get pounded. All right, let's rock here. Let's do this thing. I want to be respectful of my friend's time here. Okay, here we go. Simplest way to connect with us is via our website, everybody, tommattshow.com, where you'll find the new redesigned page. It's always getting some love and some upgrades. And Sandy's got a really good system going with our administrator and our designers and all of that. It works really well. And we put a lot of energy into that. That is the key point to find all of our social media, all of our video links. You can, individually go there, but that's the one-stop shopping right there. Go there. You get the podcast, you get the video stuff, all of it. The YouTube buttons are there. The TikTok buttons are there. It's working out really well. We'll also answer any requests or any kind of questions on any social media. Sometimes I get a little behind. I'm going to be honest here. Okay. The Instagram stuff, people like to talk in different channels. And it's like, geez, from text messaging to email to instant messaging to Facebook messaging to Instagram. It's just crazy. So, hey, and now I got TikTok to think too. And it's like, well, whatever you're doing, we want to try to communicate with you. But the best way, if you really want to get a hold of us quickly, just go to the website and go to the contact box. Remember the ReFirement Zone. What we do with the ReFirement Zone and our show is all about community, collaboration, and cooperation, the 3 C's of sharing stories and ideas. And that's what we do here, just like today's episode with my bud, Robert Bryce here, sharing stories and ideas. All right. So I think we've had a little bit of shock factor here with all of this stuff. Do you want to finish the thread on the disposableness? I'd like to ask you one more question on that first,
Sure.
before we jump from the renewable resentment. But when you go to recycle these components, what the heck do we do with them? I mean, it's like, I've heard some things, but you're the expert. What do you do with this stuff?
Well, for the wind turbine blades, they go straight to the landfill. And that's largely what's happening with the solar panels as well. Now, there's talk about creating some recycling system for the solar panels, but it doesn't exist yet. And there have been projections, one by the study out of Harvard, that estimated by 2040 or so, the amount of waste, the amount of solar panels that are going to be wasted will be equal to the amount of new solar panels entering the market. I mean, we're looking at a tidal wave of renewable stuff that is going to have to be disposed of. And right now, these turbine blades, I've seen them near Sweetwater, Texas. They're just piling them up out there in the field, and they're not being recycled. And they have a big banner sign out there. We're waiting to recycle this. Yeah, I bet you are waiting a long time to recycle them, because they're not going to happen. Because they contain this plastic that isn't recyclable. So they have to be landfilled, but there aren't very many landfills that will take them now. So, it's all just incredibly short-sighted, Tom, but it's, this part of this romance and belief in these low power density sources and that are intermittent, that are somehow going to save us from climate change. And it's a big fat lie.
It's just romance. Let's throw some romance at it and, sugarcoat everything. All right, let's shift gears here. We've got a lot to cover here with Robert. Unplugged, Ford lost a ton for every EV. I see this and I'm like, well, how much does the car cost? And then how can a company stay viable without, there's just, I'm not even speculate on anything. Please, you share the moment of truth as you eloquently wrote in your Substack article from July 27th. Go ahead, bud.
Sure. Well, I've been following this for a while. I've been a skeptic on electric vehicles for a long time. The history of the electric vehicle is a century of failure, tailgating failure. We've heard about this technology since the days of Edison. And what's happened? Well, the EV has always been a boutique segment of the market. And we've heard promises over and over and over again that it's, just on the verge of commercial viability. Okay. Look at Tesla. Have they had success? Yes, they have. Last year, US EV sales total about 6% of all new car sales. But who buys them? It's the Benz and Beamer crowd, Tom. It's not the working class. The average price of a new EV in the United States last year was $66,000. So here's Ford, and a company that I have admired for a long time. I visited a Ford manufacturing plant in Kansas City a long time ago. One of the old line American industrial giants, and based in Michigan, of course, in Dearborn. This year, they at the beginning of the year, they estimated they'd lose $3 billion on their EV business. In their second quarter report, they said the loss will actually be closer to $4.5 billion.
Oh,
and so I wrote about this on my Substack, robertbryce.substack.com, and pointed out that in the second quarter, I think they sold something like 15,000 vehicles. They lost $73,000 for every EV they sold. I mean, it's just insane what they're trying to do. And here's the new CEO, Jim Farley, saying, oh, yes. And not only, so their run rate on their sales is about 60,000 units a year. By the end of next year, they're planning to be producing 600,000. They can't possibly, I will put $100 on the table right now that says there is no way, it will not happen that they will sell 600,000 electric vehicles next year. So they're looking at this massive misallocation. They are making a massive misallocation of capital. And here's the worst part, taxpayers are going to pick up a lot of the bill.
Oh, that's the thing. It's always about, we'll bail you out. We started this slippery slope of bailouts, and it's like, Okay. Who's going to pick up the coin on all of that? Okay. Next one. Fire sale. Hydrocarbon demand is booming. I read this article and it was, the whole thing is like, well, why you get these mixed messaging going on with this stuff. And it's like, well, these hydrocarbon companies are doing great, but you got this fire sale going on. So it's like, well, what the heck is the deal?
Sure. Well, let me just finish one quick point on this, on the Ford part of this, which is that so you have the Ford Lightning, the electric pickup. They've cut they just announced they're reducing the price, so they're going to make their losses are going to be even larger in the near term. And their flagship sedan, the Ford Mach-E Mustang Mach-E, they're piling up. I went to the dealership here in Austin and saw the vehicles on the lot myself, and they're not moving. They're not selling them. So the F Series truck is the one that is the cash machine for Ford, and they're selling 200,000 of those every year. And how many of their Ford EVs are they selling? The electric trucks, less than 5,000. So, it's just but the problem is that and it's a different article that I wrote about Ford and GM. They're both using taxpayer money to fund this electric vehicle expansion. And in one case, and I used data from Good Jobs First, General Motors is building a factory to build to make batteries for their EVs. Counting all the subsidies, the federal and local subsidies, the cost of each job that will be created at this battery factory that GM is building, $7.7 million per job. For Ford, they're building a plant. I think it's in Michigan, in Marshall, Michigan, $3.4 million per job. I mean, this is just flat crazy town, Tom. I mean, just flat crazy town that these industrial companies are milking the federal subsidies and the local subsidies to the tune of that kind of coin. It's just insane to build a luxury product like an electric vehicle. It's just, there's no indication that the consumer demand is going to be sufficient to take all of that offtake, and it's just a massive misallocation of capital, and the taxpayers are going to be stuck with the bill. I mean, poop rolls downhill. This is the first rule of plumbing.
Yeah, it does, baby, and that's for darn sure. All right, so we'll set this thing up here because I should have let Robert finish, and I apologize everybody for letting him finish about the Ford thing. But set up the fire sale for the next segment, Robert. We'll come back to that because we got a minute and a half to go here. Go ahead, please.
Sure. So I'm not a financial analyst. I don't give financial advice. But I do follow the stock market, right? Because, well, one, I have, some modest investments, but also just how does the stock market reflect the sentiment in the broader society? To me, those are very interesting things. So I did some calculations. I worked with my brother, Wally, who I love dearly. He's a CPA and an avid follower of the markets, and just looked at what is happening, or rather how the stock market is treating oil and gas companies relative to the broader indexes. And what I found was that companies like Occidental Petroleum, well, not Oxy necessarily, but Chevron, Exxon, Diamondback, Pioneer, other companies like that, they're selling at a massive discount to the overall market because there's this bias or this belief that, oh, these companies are going away, when in fact, the demand for oil and gas continues to soar. So it's just, I think, to me, what's fascinating about it is just it is a reflection of this misunderstanding, I think, in the marketplace, and maybe an opportunity for investors. But that's enough of a.
Well, we'll finish we're going to finish this whole thread when we come back. I wanted that. See, that's a great explanation. This is why you guys want to stick around, because we're going to talk about that, the fire sale with Robert Bryce. I'm Tom Matt. It's a Tom Matt Show. Rolling. Let me get this thing moved over. Another read to do here, and then we move on. Here we go. Fourth segment of the Tom Matt Show is sponsored by another bro, Brock, and Mike Dedman, our buyer's agent from the selling team of Keller Williams Realty. They are the best. I mean, the trust factor between both of our sponsors and anybody that sponsors our programming is always going to be there. You can, if you hear me talking about them, we've used their products. Could be On Target Living. It could be whomever. I mean, there's so many people that I will support because we've used their products and continue to use their products. But Brock Fletcher, the selling team, they're the best. 517-853-6408. The super secret, not so super secret cell phone number to Brock and right to his pocket, which he changes these messages all the time. So you know when he's going to call you back. Write this one down. This is really important. 517-303-3262. 517-303-3262. Go online at kwsellingteam.com. Go to our website, tommattshow.com. Bottom of the homepage, as I said earlier, you can go there and you can click right into where they're going. Sell your home without the hassles, like we did. Again, it was apprehension time. We go into the ReFirement Zone. If you're approaching the ReFirement Zone, or maybe you're just trying to get larger because your family is growing and you're younger, you need to find people like Brock to help you with this, because real estate is very complicated. And I'm not just bull jiving you here, everybody. It's complicated. And so you want to get the best value you can, but you got to find people you trust. Brock Fletcher, the selling team of Keller Williams Realty, is the man. And if you're moving around this country, if you're going to Austin, Texas, like my guest, Robert Bryce, lives over there now, or has for a long time, I should say. Keller Williams they're a Texas company, but they're huge. I mean, just like Ameriprise with Craig, huge companies, strong backbone, very sustainable. Go there, check it out, please. Okay. So that's Brock Fletcher, and he's our guy. And we're very proud to say that. All right. My friend, Robert Bryce is here, and power hungry, energy expert, been on the show before. Very, very grateful to him for giving us his time. He's a very busy man. Robert, we're going to talk. You set up the thing about, you've already talked about the Ford and losing over $70,000 per vehicle that they created, which is incredible to even try to think about, especially when you sell them for like 60. I mean, it's just like, how does that work? Tell me how that works. But the fire sale with the big energy, the hydrocarbon industry, and all of this disinformation about what the heck is going on with these companies. Can you please enlighten the average Jane Joe about what you perceive as happening here, please?
Sure. Well, so let's just look at we've been talking about cars and automobiles in America. Well, so there's this part of the reason that these oil and gas companies in particular are selling at a discount to the market is somehow this belief that, we won't be using oil anymore. Well, that ignores the fact that the U.S. auto fleet is enormous, 280 million motor vehicles or so in the United States, and they burn gasoline. And so I start the article called Fire Sale on my Substack, robertbryce.substack.com, pointing out that Buc-ee's, which is a gasoline chain, a convenience store chain based here in Texas, just opened the world's largest gas station in Tennessee. They're going to have something like 120 fuel pumps. So it's like, at the same time, there's this belief, oil and gas is going away. These gas stations, these are just enormous. But let's drill down just to the specifics about the numbers, because that's the heart of the article. The article called Fire Sale was price to earnings ratio is a well-known metric for stock, people who buy stocks, right? What's the price to earnings ratio, which is a metric that gives you an idea of what the future cash flow of the company is relative to their existing stock price. So for the Standard & Poor's 500 index, the S&P, the PE ratio is 20.5. So, but now you look at ConocoPhillips 6.5, Shell 8, BP 4.3, Chevron 5, Devon Energy, an Oklahoma City-based company 9. So they're selling at huge discounts to the overall market. And you can look, and I used one other metric, which was enterprise value to EBITDA, which is another way to a common valuation metric. For the S&P 500, it's 13.5. For BP, and I'm not touting any of these stocks, I don't own any of these stocks, 2.6. Shell 3.0. Devon less than 4. ConocoPhillips less than 5. So I'm not touting these stocks, but just pointing out that there is an apparent misvaluation in the marketplace because of this bias, this very clearly mistaken belief that oil and gas is going away.
Is it?
The short answer, not no, hell no. It's not going away. We can't change the economy. It's taken us a century to get where we are with oil and gas now. So the idea that we're suddenly going to pivot and we're going to run everything on renewables. No, we're not. even if we tried to do that, we can't overcome the intermittency factor. We don't have the land use requirements are too large. We don't have the metals, minerals, and magnets. The amount of mining that would be required to make this happen is just insanely large. So these issues are just being kind of elided over, and by academics, by the NGOs, and by this administration, frankly.
I sent an article to you a while back about Elon Musk coming out saying, our energy grid needs to be worked on, or whatever the hell. I remember the article. You recall that article I sent to you?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sure you saw it. Can you please comment on the grid? And because we've talked about this before, but I think people that are new to the program might need to be a little more aware of exactly what our country is looking at. Can you just kind of give us that? You got about 4 or 5 minutes here. I'm sure you can ramble on. This is a big issue. This is a huge issue.
An enormous one. And it's this idea, oh, well, we'll just upgrade the grid. We'll just increase the size of the grid by, 2 or 3 times. And my response again is, the hell you will. No, you can't. It's a misunderstanding of where we are and what, how long it took to build the system of networks that we have. The Department of Energy put out a report earlier this year that said, we need to increase the size of the grid by 57%, not 58, not 60, 56, 57% by 2030 or 2035. Well, they did have no numbers in there that put the scale of the problem into context. But here's the reality. All across rural America, just as with wind and solar projects, local landowners, local counties, even states are saying, we don't want this big project going across our state. Are you kidding me? So the state of Iowa has a law prohibiting the use of eminent domain by private high voltage transmission companies. I can give you a chapter and verse on this, Tom. So this idea that, we're going to have to build out the grid and do a massive build out in order to accommodate renewables, again, is another example of this misguided thinking, shallow thinking, or lack of thinking in terms of where we are and how long it takes to change these massive networks of that form our energy and power systems.
The energy network that is existing now, in your opinion, could it be retrofitted, or is the new network that's coming just going to have, because I'm a throughput guy, I'm all about bandwidth and, the size of the wire. What's
Sure.
the transmission? What's your take on it?
Well, we can expand, and we will expand the network some. There's no doubt about it, and we should, of course. But it's going to be incremental. I've done the analysis on this, and the C3 group out of Atlanta gave me some good numbers. We're expanding the high voltage transmission grid in the United States today at a rate of about 1,700 miles a year. That's 240 kV and above. Well, Tom, we have 240,000 miles of high voltage transmission. And yet, there's this professor out of Princeton, we just need to double the size of the network, the high voltage grid. Oh, right. Well, that'll be easy. Doubling it'll take like 60 years at current rates. How do you think this is going to happen? Where are you going to find the labor? Where are we going to find the linemen, which are, by the way, are in desperately short supply? What about the transformers? What about the wires? What about the rights of way? It's just this kind of hand waving that we're overflowing with hand waving and how easy this is all going to be. And it's not going to be easy at all. It's not going to be easy. It's not going to be cheap, and it's not going to be fast.
Well, then the whole thing about it is it's drama. It's drama. Let's get everybody, we've got to go into lockdown state. It's an emergency. It's all of this, clickbait talking, and forget the clickbait talking, everybody. Let's look at reality and make good informed decisions. Robert Bryce is with me today. Robert, we're going to go to break here in a second. Sure. And then we're going to do the messages to my younger self. And in this one, everybody, as we do every week, except when I have my really, really young guests on here, we ask them what they would do for their younger self. This is going to be advice on the indoctrination. You want to set that up? Take about 30 seconds to set that up. What would you like to tell younger self?
Take yourself seriously and where you're going. Take that part seriously and define that goal about where you're trying to go. But laugh as much as you can along the way.
Okay. So what we'll talk about is how our younger people need to understand what Robert is saying and how we get the message across to them because there's a lot of, I could use my colorful language all day long right here, everybody, but there's a lot of brainwashing that's going on. And we're going to talk about truth. Robert Bryce is here, power hungry, kingpin. I'm Tom Show. Awesome. Here we go. This is plug for you. Anything you want to plug, books, speaking, you know the drill. Just
No
whatever you
problem.
want to do. Okay,
Okay.
here you go. All right. I always mention it because I've had guests who didn't, they either got a new phone number or they got a new website or something. It's like, I don't want to throw you a curveball because we're like recording. Here we go. All right, get ready, everybody. Here comes the fifth segment. But before we jump into messages with my pal Robert, talking about this education and indoctrination for our young people across the board with energy issues, because that's going to be our topic for the messages. Robert, how would you like people to connect with you? You're all over the place, but what are the key things you want people to know? Go ahead. It's your time.
Well, thank you. It's great to be with you, Tom. I'm doing almost all my writing these days on Substack. So robertbryce.substack.com is where I'm telling people to find me. But I'm on the interweb. You can't miss me. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Substack. I'm on Twitter as well, at Power Hungry, PWR Hungry. And then, of course, my website, robertbryce.com, where I maintain the Renewable Rejection Database, the only free online comprehensive searchable database that shows the rejections or restrictions on renewable energy from 2015 to the present. So you can take a look at that, all fully documented with links to hyperlinks to the existing sources about to prove up what that rejection or restriction. So I'm very proud of what I do. That's my passion and my purpose, and always happy to engage on these issues.
Empirical evidence is way better than just talking fluff. I mean, because we get so much bull crap. It's ridiculous. And so you want to go to sources and find people like Robert, who gets a lot of, I mean, I see it. I follow him very, very consistently. You get a lot of pushback from people who have vested interests in this whole topic. And it's like, follow the money, baby. That's why I tell Sandy all the time, Robert. It's like, if you got an issue in anything, follow the money, and you'll usually follow and find as somebody says all the time, root cause. All right. So let's talk about messages to my younger self with my pal, Robert. Now, typically I like to frame this up so that, Robert's talking to his younger self. What would he have liked to known? When you wrote that Enron book 25 years ago, whenever that was, as a younger writer, you've gone through a lot. You've seen a lot. What would you like to tell your younger self as far as becoming educated and seeing through the smoke of this indoctrination? Because this is what I think is happening, is people are being convinced not only on the global energy thing and the global warming thing and all of this fear. Go right ahead. Please enlighten everybody as to what is actual fact and what is kind of smoke and mirrors, please.
Well, I guess it's an interesting question, Tom. I haven't thought about it in those ways, in that exact way, but in the piece that I wrote on Fire Sale, I talked about something called the Lindy effect, which is a rather new idea to me. And Nicholas Nassim Taleb talks about this, but it's that the longer a system or something is in place, the longer it's likely to be in place. So if a book is, Taleb uses this idea of, well, if the book's been in print for 30 years, it's likely to stay in print for another 30 years. And I use that point with gasoline. So gasoline demand in the US has been about 9 million barrels a day since the early 90s. And it's 9 million barrels a day today, right? It hasn't changed. I'm just right at 9 million barrels a day. So that implies then that it's going to continue. So in terms of energy and power systems, that's is one of the key messages I would tell myself at that time, which was, you think these systems are going to change quickly? No. We have the energy and power systems that we have for a lot of reasons. And those reasons are based in fundamental physics and basic math. And it's a scale issue. So had I known that, Tom, I would have saved myself a lot of thrashing around. But I by 2010 or so, in my book Power Hungry, I understood it, right? And I said, it's all about power density. This is the metric you have to know. And so That would be my, pay it the Lindy effect. Understand the Lindy effect and why it matters for energy and power.
Excellent. Thank you for that. That's perfect. I've got to ask you because I'm a
Sure.
fan of Jordan Peterson, and
Oh yeah.
you were on with Jordan, Mr. Peterson.
Yeah.
Guys, talk about a polarizing cat. How did that come to be, and how was that for you? I mean, what was that all? What was that like?
Well, thanks for asking. I mean, it was a great opportunity, of course. And I've been an admirer of Jordan Peterson's for a long time. And do I agree with everything he says and does? No, of course not. But what I do admire is his tenacity and his fearlessness and his willingness to engage and to provoke. I mean, I think that would be the right word, because in some ways he is a provocateur in on some of these issues, and well, he should be, given that what he's done and where, how he's been treated in some cases. But he's had an effect on people in my own family, and very positive one, especially young men in my family. That message of self-reliance and make your damn bed, get up and take care of yourself, stand up straight. That message of personal responsibility is one that is dire and sorely needed by the generation that's coming up. And so that's one of the reasons why I think he's had such a big impact and had such great success, is because people needed to hear that, and they needed to hear it from someone with his stature and his gravity. So the interview itself, I thought, went very well. I was pleased. I was able to make the points that I've been making for a long time and reach a big audience. That one channel, that one episode, I think has been downloaded or viewed on YouTube about 500,000 times. I've had people reach out to me from all over the world. I mean, it's pretty flattering. And I'm also flattered I'm going to be on a conference with him and Bjorn Lomborg in October in London at the Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. I've written a long paper for them on electrification in the developing world. So flattered that, be able to engage with him and some of the other bold-faced names again. So great opportunity for me, and, really fortunate.
Congratulations on that. Your perfect segue into my next topic question to kind of fill out the show here. But electricity to the developing world. I ran into a student, Robert. It was very interesting. And I'm going to make a soft intro to you. He's
Sure.
an attorney now in West Virginia. And I knew him at Michigan State. And, I was having a meeting over there and walked into our CAF where we have Brody Hall, where I have a lot of meetings. And we sat down and talked, and he had lunch with me and one of my former colleagues. And he is an energy attorney now in West Virginia. And I said, oh, I got to turn you on to Robert. Young guy, very, very good guy. And we're talking about coal and the developing world. He said, this is something that you can discuss this with him too, but he was talking about how people from India are coming over to learn how to deal with coal, mine coal, find coal. The developing world, electricity to the developing world is going to be using coal. I mean, there is no doubt. Can you please just illuminate, that's one of your things, illuminate the listeners of the program about the challenges of electricity to the developing world? Because you've talked about this in your books. I've read it, and
Sure.
it's very, very important for people to understand.
Well, I'll introduce the iron law of electricity, which says very simply that people, countries, businesses will do whatever they have to do to get the electricity they need. And I've seen this myself. I saw it in India, where people steal electricity. I saw it in Beirut, where people pay the generator mafia. They pay two bills, the Lebanese do, one to the generator mafia, one to the grid operator, because the generator mafia can provide power when the grid goes down. And in Lebanon, the grid goes down all the time. People are not going to sit in the dark. This is just a fact. And so what do we see across Southeast Asia, Indonesia, Vietnam, China, India, et cetera, Pakistan? Booming demand for coal. So we hear, all this self-congratulatory backpatting here in the US. Oh, we're quitting coal. We're not burning coal. You're Western Europe. Oh, we're quitting coal. Coal demand this year, according to the IEA, will set a new record of about 8.4 billion tons. And it's not just China and India. It's those other countries that I just mentioned. So, this idea that we're just going to use renewables and clean, green, blah, blah, blah. We're just flat wrong. I mean, it's just not happening. And those are the numbers, and they're not my numbers, the IEA numbers, the BP numbers. The reality is that this coal continues to be the single biggest source of power generation in the world, and it will be for years to come.
The 3 billion people that are living in energy poverty, really what they want is like a refrigerator, guys. They want simple
Air conditioning.
air conditioning. I mean, this is not like giant flat screen TVs that we're all accustomed to. That's the whole thing that people need to understand. This is a quality of life issue. It's a health issue. If we're going to be, because the world is made up of human beings and we need to help the other human beings. Robert, in a closing statement, when I just said, or whatever you'd like to talk about, please give me a couple minutes for a takeaway, and then, comment on whatever you'd like to. Go right ahead.
Sure. Well, I guess I'd first remind people, here in the U.S., Iris Chang, the late author of a book called The Rape of Nanking, said, and she committed suicide in her 30s. One of her great lines was, "Never forget how lucky you are." And I think that's one of my watchwords, because I've, like many people, I've had some challenges in my life and my family, and, buried friends and, family. But we live an incredibly privileged life here in the United States, incredibly privileged, incredibly well-resourced. We live in lives of energy abundance. And I mentioned the paper that I'm writing for the Alliance for Responsible Planning, Responsible Citizenship, ARC. There are 3.7 billion people in the world today who live in electricity poverty. 3.7 billion. That's 4 out of 10 people on the planet today live in places where average consumption of electricity is less than what's used by a large kitchen refrigerator in the US. So remember how lucky you are. I mean, people complain about airplanes being delayed. Oh, right. Your ice isn't cold enough, idiot. You're flying at 500 miles an hour, 6 miles above the surface of the earth, and you're complaining about the fact that your ice isn't cold. Well, sit down and shut the F up. You live an incredibly privileged life. You're riding on a rocket ship. Shut up and sit down.
Let me close it. That was so awesome. Let me close with this. Robert Bryce is a Texas-based author, journalist, podcaster, film producer, do it all, knows it all. Follow his stuff on Substack. Go buy his books. Look at his movies. I mean, he's all over the place. Wall Street Journal, National Review, Field and Stream, Austin Chronicle. I mean, Juice, how electricity explains the world, will answer a lot of questions. And I'm going to close this bad boy by saying this. Always remember, before you can share love with others, like the other developing people in the world with energy, you must love yourself first. Take care of your people. All right. We'll talk to you next weekend, everybody. I want to thank Sandy, Craig, Brock, and of course, the legend, Mitch Anderson. Robert Bryce been my guest today. Thank you so much, everybody. Tom Matt Show is a production of Boomers Rock Media. We want to bring your story to life. Thank you so much for listening. We are out. I got it right under the freaking line. He's going to be so happy with me. My producer. Hey, that was awesome, man. I really do love talking to you. It's fun, and continue to learn so much from you. And so anything I can do anytime, I wish I'd love a return the favor anytime. And maybe someday we'll get down to Austin, and I'd like to get to that part of the country, and instead of just driving through the panhandle like we did last winter. But I'd like to get down to Austin sometime and just see you. If you ever get to the Midwest again, please let me know. Give me a little notice. I'll do my best to come see you, because it'd be fun to have, coffee or lunch or something. All right.
And are you in Lansing? Where are you?
Well, we're in Lansing right now, but we have our place in Kimberly in Wisconsin, which is Fox Valley, up there by Green Bay. So, so we travel back and forth. And so we spend a bulk of our time here. About 60% of our time is here. And then the other 40% is doing baseball, softball tournaments with some grandkids, and then, hanging out over there, and it's fun. I mean, so yeah,
Awesome.
If you ever get to Michigan or Wisconsin, like you already been to Wisconsin, but let me know. I would love to come see you.
Well, that's a very kind offer, Tom. I appreciate it.
All right, brother.
All right, my friend, take care. And let me know when this airs, and I'll push it out.
I'll let you know. I'll send you all the link. I have that production sheet that I do now, and it has all the links to everything, and I chop it up pretty thoroughly. So, yeah, whatever people want, we try to give it to them. So again, thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate you.
All right, my friend. Thanks. See you.
All right, buddy. See you, man. Robert Bryce, the Kingpin. Guy is amazing, and I hope you find these topics enlightening. He is not bull crapping at all. That was truth. Everything you just heard is not any propaganda or anything. He is a journalist, and he is a very well-known journalist. And that's why he speaks at Congress in front of travels the world, is just a wonderful asset to us and resource. So again, thank you so much for tuning in, watching, doing whatever you do, and check out Robert's, his books and Substack if you want to get informed. He's hugely impactful on LinkedIn as well. So leave you with that, everybody. Have a great day, great week, great life. Together, we change the world. All right. Peace out, everybody. I'm Tom Matt. We're out.